This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com. And we're going to cover a subject today we haven't really covered on this channel before. My friend Jack Nolan, a comedian who's in upstate New York right now, has been fascinated by this JFK assassination for a long time. I'll get him to explain it to you. I know very little about it other than a few documentaries and a few interviews where I've heard Jesse Ventura discuss that he definitely doesn't believe it was a lone gunman, that there definitely was at least two. But you've been researching it for a long time, Jack, so I'll let you
Sure.
pretty much take this away and I'll ask you questions here or there as you go.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me, champ. It's so great to see you again, and always a pleasure, man. And yeah, my name is Jack Nolan. I'm a Marine Corps. I'm a retired United States Marine Corps intelligence veteran. I've been a headline stand-up comic on Broadway. I'm also a Teamster cross-country trucker, and I've had a lifelong fascination with the Kennedy assassination. And I think, like most people that do so, I've always been a strong supporter of the conspiracy argument. And my investigation, from my own interest, has always been in identifying the actual shooters. Most people put more of an emphasis on the motivation, on the why it was carried out, and the reasons, the bigger reasons as to regarding Kennedy's policies that got him killed. I always thought that if you could identify the actual shooters, then in doing so, you can basically reverse engineer the entire conspiracy from that direction and prove the agencies involved. And one such investigation that has always been something that I guess mostly agree with and had a strong fascination with is that of author Stephen Revell. He first came to prominence in the mid 1980s in a documentary called The Men Who Killed Kennedy. And he had written a book in which he had multiple interviews with a prisoner in the United States named Christian David. And David, through a series of interviews with him, revealed that Christian David had been a member of the Corsican Brotherhood, which is a European mafia organized crime family. And he had revealed in interviews that he did know who had been the Grassy Knoll shooter, and he identified a man named Lucien Sarte as that shooter. Now, Lucien Sarte had been a member of the Corsican Brotherhood, and very, very little is known about him. In fact, you can, even today, if you research his background, you can only find two known photographs of Sarte. But I have long had or over the past couple of years, I should say, I've been developing the theory that Lucien Sarte actually did not exist, that he was, in fact, a creation, sort of a boogeyman developed by the CIA, and that his real identity was an OSS, CIA, and DEA special agent named Lucien Conan. And just as for people familiar with the JFK investigation, just as Clay Bertrand was Clay Shaw and Jerry Hammond was also Jerry Henning, I think that Lucien Sarte was really Lucien Conan. And Lucien Conan had also been a member of the Corsican Brotherhood. He was born in France and immigrated to the United States at age 5. He returned to France at age 18 to fight against Nazi Germany, and was there during the time when the Third Reich overtook the French military. And from there, his story gets kind of conflicting, and it really, when it comes to special operatives like that, you kind of have to make your own determinations as to what you may believe actually happened. He had been working in World War II, which the French with the French resistance, and the Corsican Brotherhood had been a major part of his efforts while there. He had been in Jedburgh in World War II. Very dangerous. Man's an incredible American hero, without a doubt. Very, very dangerous operations throughout the war. And I believe it was when serving in Vichy, France, I believe that's when he became an OSS asset. And if you look at his history, it mirrors Sarti, who, of course, is also a Corsican brother. And these two would have almost certainly known each other. And yet there's no records of this whatsoever. Lucien Sarti is said to have been a Nazi sympathizer and have worked with Nazi efforts both during and after the war. Yet Lucien Sarti is recorded to have been born in 1931. So, I mean, aside from being a drummer boy or a buglist, I don't know what he could have possibly done to serve in the military for the Nazis. However, Lucien Conan was born, I believe, in 1920, and he had been in France when France fell under the direction of Adolf Hitler, and would definitely fit the bill as far as that goes. Also, Lucien Sarti, there's a movie based partially on him called The French Connection. Came out in the 1970s. It's a very popular movie with Gene Hackman. And part of Lucien Sarti's story is that he was killed in 1973 in a shootout in Mexico City against the Federales, an operation orchestrated by E. Howard Hunt. E. Howard Hunt would be of later Watergate fame. And part of that mission, another subordinate of Hunt's in that mission was Conan. So you see his name show up regularly throughout one another's history, and vice versa. So I believe that was actually completely created. Mexico City is a long time, what would you call it? It's like a spy capital of the world. It has a long history of different intelligence operatives working throughout that area, going back to even before the Cold War began. And so little is known about Lucien Sarti, his what he looked like. People, he's said to have worn multiple disguises and everything. He's known to have been a heroin trafficker, an opiate trafficker. And one thing that perplexed me about the Revell investigation is why would an opiate trafficker possibly get the contract to shoot the American president? Doesn't make any sense. And I believe that's because his true identity was that of one of the greatest soldier spies of the 20th century, one of the greatest U.S. Service members in the history of American warfare, Lucien Conan. He was a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. He was a OSS officer, precursor to the CIA. He was a special agent in the CIA. And he also would become one of the founding fathers of the DEA during the Nixon administration, which, if you think about it, I mean, that sounds like a major breakdown in intelligence for a known Corsican Brotherhood member to become one of the founding fathers of the Drug Enforcement Agency. But yet that is recorded fact. That is indisputable. And to go on further with that, another thing that's interesting with Hunt, to go back to him, is when he was dying, he came forward with his son in a somewhat disputed deathbed confession, in which he gave his son, St. John Hunt, a great deal of information regarding his involvement in the Kennedy assassination, identifying himself, I believe, as one of the known as the three tramps. I think he's the older one wearing a hat, which would hide his pointed ears, which he was very well known for. In fact, that's even referenced in the movie The Irishman, which recently came out with Robert De Niro. It was a pretty good movie. And to go further on with Hunt, he named everyone else's involvement, yet he did not name the exact shooter. He would only write in the document I was able to provide you earlier, it just says French gunman, grassy knoll. Yet, but if he knew the identity of everyone else involved, he certainly knew the identity of the shooter. So why French gunman, grassy knoll? And it's also important to note that Lucien Sarthe is said to have not been Corsican, not French. Yet Lucien Conan was born in France and immigrated to the United States at age 5. So he completely fits the bill there without a doubt. And if you look at that document where it says gunman specifically, it's almost illegible. It looks as though it almost said something else originally, and then he altered it. The word gunman looks as though it could have even read Conan at first. And Conan, he did retire, lived to be an old man. I believe he died in 1998. Very decorated war hero. He was a general in the French Foreign Legion. I mean, this guy had incredible military records. This is one of the founding fathers of the United States Military Special Forces. Certainly would have been an incredible shot to have taken that shot from the grassy knoll behind the picket fence, which is a very limited distance anyway. My little sister could have taken that shot. But I believe their identities to be one and the same. And I'm leaving out a bunch of information here, just going off the top of my head, which I did not want to do, but I'm trying to remember as much detail as possible that I could give you. But in trying to do a lot of research to confirm all of this, I found so many difficulties, so many walls. I noticed that in trying to contact Stephen Revell, I couldn't even get him to admit who he was. And in researching his information, I found out that when he was receiving this information from Christian David, his contact at the CIA for verification on Lucien Sarthe was a special agent named Lou Conan, the same man. So, I mean, that tells you something right there. And I believe he was scared off of the investigation and has never returned to it since. And in his memoirs, it's mentioned that Hunt had asked Conan to be a part of Watergate, to which he kindly refused and obviously did not decided against participation. And he wrote in his memoirs that had he been part of Watergate, they would have certainly gotten away with it. And I completely agree with that. I believe he's absolutely right. I mean, this guy was it was practically magic. Very, very incredible record, and you might say, how could you possibly speak so highly of somebody that, you're arguing was involved in the plot to assassinate the president? The man's military record speaks for itself. He's indisputably an American war hero, and whatever involvement he had that day, I believe those were the orders, unfortunately, that he was following, and probably did not have a great deal of information beyond that. So, anyway, that's my position. That's my reason. Is a great deal of the research that I can provide you, and I'm glad to be able to do so, brother.
So you sent me these pictures of the tramps, and then you sent these follow-up ones. So what can you explain further? What
Sure.
the
The three tramps, which were said to have been in the location of the behind the Paragolia, in the area of the by the railroad yard, as identified by Lee Bowers. There were three gentlemen, and we reported that a police officer appeared immediately after the final shot was fired. And I believe that was Lucien Conan, again acting as Lucien Sarthe. And I believe E. Howard Hunt is the older gentleman with the hat. The younger man next to him would be a man named Frank Sturgis. And another guy is Bill Cardwell. And they were all obviously very, very deeply involved in the Central Intelligence Agency and had done numerous clandestine operations leading up before that point, which is the only reason that they would have that sort of involvement in the first place. And they were apprehended later on that day. If you watch the videos, most of the videos regarding the assassination, not just the Zapruder film, but if you also watch the Hughes film and the Nix film specifically, they have a delay period prior to the presidential motorcade's turn onto Elm Street from Houston. There's missing time. There's a gap of time. And you'll notice that there is another picture from which I provided you. You see a picture of Lucian Conan, indisputably Lucian Conan, next to the babushka lady, the woman identified and referred to as the babushka lady in investigations. And she would later
It's not that one, but that's
recorded as being just beyond where the third shot was fired, and standing there comfortably. So there was enough time for them to move from their location, from where that photograph was taken, probably less than 3 minutes before the assassination, to make the move across the field and to get into, to lock into firing position and carry out the execution. And there you see the picture right there. I believe that's E. Howard Hunt right there. His head is obscured by the police officer's helmet. But again, if you notice the ears. And that is indisputably Conan. If you compare his picture to some of his other pictures, I mean, there's absolutely no denying it. And there
what was this document?
That's part of the deathbed confession right there. And the bottom rectangle reads French gunman, grassy knoll. And that's the portion that I believe initially read Conan. And I could be wrong on the writing about that, but I'm certain, even if I'm off on one or two details, I'm not off on all of this. That's for damn sure. And I believe without a doubt that Conan was Lucien Sarthe. I believe that it's a CIA creation to control the illegal opiate trade in the Golden Triangle from that period into the Western world. And he had been working as a businessman.
So as far as the guy that was blamed as being the lone gunman, even though it seems like there were at least two gunmen admitted now from all the research, what was Oswald? What did he have to do with all of this, and who was he connected with?
Oswald, I don't believe, took any sort of shot whatsoever. Oswald, I believe, was a low-level operative. I believe he just was exactly what he claimed to be. I believe he was a patsy. And then the picture you had just shown, the picture of him holding up the rifle and his communist leaflets, he said that those were not pictures of him, that they were, in fact, that he had done some amateur photographic trickery himself, and that his face had been cropped onto that, and you can see that his chin does not match the chin in the picture. It's argued that a police officer named Roscoe White is actually the man in that photograph with Oswald's face cropped over it, although like so many other discrepancies, that's just completely impossible to prove. But you'll also notice in the backyard photographs that the wedding ring on Oswald's hand keeps changing direction. In one picture, I believe it's on his middle finger. And another picture, I believe it's on his other hand, or it's not there at all. And standing with this unusual gait that you can see in this picture here is exactly how Roscoe White typically stood. And so that right there is just getting further into going down the rabbit hole of the investigation itself, and all the completely absurd irregularities from start to finish, beginning with that morning, November 22nd, 1963, in Dallas.
And I found the guy with the umbrella to be particularly weird that was just standing there. Do you think he was just randomly standing there, or was he part of it somehow?
No, I don't think anything was random. I think everything has something to do with it, even down to the Zapruder's positioning himself. I don't necessarily think that these people had any um, criminal or malicious intent themselves, but I think that they were either positioned there by someone else, by some higher authority, or perhaps they did have some prior knowledge as to what they could be expecting. But yes, you're absolutely right. It's a beautiful, warm, sunny day. I believe it was 68 degrees in Dallas, Texas that morning. And then there's just one guy standing with a big black umbrella in the location of exactly where the third shot is taking place. It was said later, the man identifying himself in that picture said that he claimed to still have the umbrella, and he brought it to the investigation, in the 1978 investigation. And he said that there's a reason that he brought the umbrella there was a visual protest of Kennedy. He was mimicking the British Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, for his appeasement of Adolf Hitler. And he was comparing Kennedy's appeasement of Khrushchev to the same. And that is his reasoning for bringing the umbrella there. But I think there's a little bit more complicated than that.
Because to me, there's no way of proving that that was the same umbrella that was there 15 years earlier, or that it was even the same guy, because the pictures are so blurry of his face.
Of
That
course,
just stands out to me.
absolutely. And
I mean, it's,
there's Dino Brugioni, who had worked on the Zapruder film for the U.S. government, had stated that the film that he worked on and that he submitted actually had much greater details of the headshot, and it was a much clearer video than what he submitted, and that there were no breaks in it. And in the Nix film, you can see the Nix film is the only film that actually covers the grassy knoll area, and you'll notice that it's completely darkened out, and you can't spot anything in that area whatsoever. But regardless, if you watch all of those videos, you'll notice that immediately after the assassination, where everyone's attention immediately turns, it's not over towards the sixth floor of the book depository building. It's all towards the grassy knoll. That's where they all start running. That's where nearly 100 people almost immediately start heading over. And it's my theory that Lucien Conan, as Lucien Sarte, was standing in that location dressed as a police officer. I think he had on some sort of disguise that he was able to transform very, very quickly. And, these are men that have such incredible capabilities and knowledge and access to things that we couldn't even dream about, the technology. Also, the three tramps, however it is that they were able to alter their appearance afterwards. There's different sort of potions that they could have drinking or injected into their face that create spasms or other things, just to create a distortion in their appearance. And that's exactly what I believe was done in order to create the illusion that they were just three homeless men.
So, what exactly was your role when you were in the military?
I worked in a subdivision of intelligence. Basically, my job was destroying information. I would so that information would not fall into the wrong hands once, let's say, computer or electronic equipment was to be discarded. Anything on those hard drives, for example, could not be, you can't just sort of put that out in the garbage outside for, the trash man to collect. So that would have to be physically destroyed. And that was a big part of my MOS. I wasn't a regular O2. I was actually in 66, but I didn't get to work in geospatial intelligence. I didn't get. It sounds a lot cooler than it was. I didn't get to do anything that cool. When I initially joined the Marine Corps right after September 11th, I had hoped to. I had these, grand um, illusions of being part of the team to capture Osama bin Laden. Of course, that would not be the case. So, destroying military equipment became a big part of my job for those 6 years in the service.
And what's your opinion on all this UFO talk? Today we've heard one of the proposed, I guess I don't know if you want to call it, there was going to be some more disclosure possibly revealed over the next few years, but I guess it was kiboshed today.
Oh, you know what, man? Who knows? The truth will come out when it is. I believe there's a predetermined time when the truth will come out, and it'll come out at that time. The entire all of the facts related to the Kennedy assassination have not been released. There is still thousands upon thousands of documents that have not been released to the American public, and those were supposed to be released no later than 2017, and they were delayed again. And who knows when those will come to light. I've always said that the truth will come to light when the truth no longer matters. When the UFO lands in Washington D.C. and Jesus gets out and he is there to hand everyone a pizza, that's when we'll know the truth.
Very good. So, where can people see you? Where are you performing these days?
I've taken a break. Actually, I was headlining at Caroline's up until not too long ago. Unfortunately, that's no longer there, and I've taken this time now to focus on writing, and that's predominantly what I've been putting a lot of my energies into these days. Working on a novel. I've definitely lived a pretty unique life. So that's since I lost my wife in a car accident about 3.5 years ago, and I've been looking for some sort of means to channel that energy into. And so I think writing has been an appropriate outlet for me.
Very good. Well, we appreciate you sharing your theories with us. It's a very popular topic, and I'm sure over time you're going to get a lot of comments on that video.
Sure, I feel terrible because I know I'm leaving out like 100 other details that I wanted to share with you off the top of my head, but I'm unfortunately it's just. But in time, maybe we can have this conversation again, and if you'd be happy to have me back, I'd be happy to talk more about it, brother.
One thing I did read too is that they washed the car like over the weekend. It wasn't really like caution taped off as a murder scene as a regular murder scene would be, and like the car was completely clean by the Monday, which was
Not
also
only
unusual.
that, but they removed all of the glass. There was bullet holes in the windshield, which have never been completely recorded, but the glass itself was removed, and all of that evidence was in fact destroyed. It was not handled like any sort of murder investigation typically would. I mean, there's obvious indications of conspiracy from the moment that trigger was pulled.
And I also heard the bodyguard go on the record, the Secret Service guy who jumped on the car after to try and protect the First Lady. He said that
Clint
he
Hill.
heard two various bullet sounds. Like there was definitely two types of bullet sounds, in his opinion, that went
Yeah,
off.
and Clint Hill. I mean, there's another fascinating American hero, and this poor guy is taken so much blame against himself for what happened that morning, but there was absolutely nothing that he could have done to prevent anything, and his efforts are actually astonishing. I mean, he wasn't even directly supposed to be in charge of the president, as you mentioned. He was supposed to be guarding the first lady. Yet the other guy was nowhere to be seen, and Clint Hill, took the initiative to dive onto the car. He got the first lady down and kept everyone safe, and got the driver, Greer, who had stopped the vehicle, although that's debated as well, to roll out and move forward and get the Parkle in as soon as possible, because I guess he completely froze. But who knows? There could have been more bullets fired had it not been for the actions of that Secret Service agent.
Very interesting turn of events that changed the course of history for sure. Any final thoughts you want to close us off with here as we tap out?
I conclude, just to leave you again with my conclusion that Lucian Sarte was in fact Lucian Conan, and feel free to cross-check any of the information I provided here and other information. It's all very, very fascinating. If you're a Kennedy researcher like myself, it's even if you might dispute my findings, it's fascinating. It's fascinating stuff, and it's always a great rabbit hole to go down if you're up for it.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or